The story of Esther Arunga has been told many times. Probably you, your mother and your pet knows about Esther Arunga. So let me tell you a different story. The story of the man who put Esther Arunga in trouble. This is the husband of Esther Arunga, Quincy Timberlake. The name doesn't sound like an African name, and it is not. Quincy Timberlake is not even his original name. He had many other names. Of course, the wife called him Daddy. But did you know that he was also called Desato and Fizzle Dog? That's a very scary name. And why did he have all these names? Maybe because he was a conman and a cyber criminal. And this is according to his friend, Joseph Hellon.
Quincy was and is a conman and is a cyber criminal.
Hellon also said that Quincy practiced witchcraft and Satanism, and that he was a pathological liar. He once claimed that he had made a deal to be interviewed by a CNN journalist, Larry King, in Nairobi, and also spoke about a worship rally with American preacher Benny Hinn, an allegation that was quickly proven to be false. And even more alarming, he lied that his mother had died of HIV and AIDS. But his mother was alive, and she never understood what was wrong with her son because he was a good person. But this good person abandoned his first wife of 10 years without telling her and married another woman, Esther Arunga. He eventually killed his son because the son was possessed by demons. Is there anything good about Quincy Timberlake? Let's find out. This video is sponsored by nobody, but if you enjoy this content and want to support my quest to create more amazing stuff, feel free to donate right here. Your contribution motivates me. This is not a simple job. Remember to like this video and subscribe.
I'm happily announcing today to you, fearless, doubtless, apayperless, apestixiless, and doigmless, that I'm running for the parliamentary seat of Langata come 2012.
From the very beginning, everything about Quincy Timberlake raised a red flag. Like in this interview that happened in 2010, he's shamelessly mentioning imaginary words you can Google. He also claimed that he wanted to be the president of Kenya, and his first agenda was to remove Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni from power to allow the East African region to prosper peacefully. I know you're also wondering, what was this guy smoking? No one truly knows the story of Quincy Timberlake. At one point, people speculated that he was a Nigerian or a South African, and this is because he never told the public the real story, not even to his wife or his mother. In an interview with The Nation in 2014, his mother didn't seem to understand how her son became successful. Anyway, in the interview, the mother, Rosemeg Wambita, a teacher by profession, gave details where he attended school, his real name, and how he mysteriously flew to the US. Quincy Timberlake is the firstborn in a family of 8 children. His real name is not Quincy Timberlake, but Sami Sajid Singh Wambita, and that is according to the mother. His childhood nickname was Joginda, named after the renowned safari rally driver Joginda Singh, who died in 2013. He had a rough childhood, but the fact that they had a big family and the mother couldn't sustain them with her teaching profession. The mother struggled to raise them, especially after a school she owned was broke into in 1997. The mother then decided to engage in community work to revive the school, but she failed. Information about Quincy's father is not known, but the mother once said that it is one part of her life that she does not want to talk about, only revealing that she left the husband after the birth of their last child. Quincy Timberlake attended Kokuro Primary in Migori, then Mulaha Primary in Siaya, before taking his KCP exams at Siaya Township Primary School. At Kokuro Primary is where Quincy met Joseph Hellon. They were deskmates, and so they spent a lot of time together. According to Hellon, he was a very hot-tempered person, but strangely very polite. After primary school, Joseph Hellon never saw him again until 2009 when he showed up at his doorstep looking for help, and we'll talk about that later in the video. He later joined Holo Secondary School, then moved to Shenge High School in Siaya, where he sat his KCSE exams. At this time, according to the mother, he was well-mannered and she never saw any indication of bad or suspicious behavior in him. After high school, Quincy Timberlake told his mother that the Bill Gates Foundation had offered him a chance to study in the US. Such offers were rare, and any parent would gladly let the daughter or the son go and study. So Quincy traveled to the US. The weird part about this trip is that it was not clear if the foundation had offered him the chance, because there was no proof, there were no papers. And also, what was he going to study in the US? In an interview with Citizen Television, Quincy claimed he worked for Benny Hinn when studying in the US, where he acquired a master's degree in endocrinology.
Personally worked for Benny Hinn Ministries, Irving, Texas, back in 2005. Yeah.
But you knew him longer though?
From 97.
From 97.
Yeah. Okay. When I was in the US studying endocrinology, where I'm holding master's degree, I happened to meet Benny through one of the Spokane's.
You have a master's degree in endocrinology?
Yes, sir. I do. I've studied a lot.
After the studies, he came back to Kenya in 2009. During this time, he was still behaving very well. He was kind-hearted and friendly. He even taught his younger siblings how to prepare exotic foods. He moved the family from Manyata slums to Tomboya Estate in Kisumu and paid their 2-year rent upfront. Remember, this was a big family, so it was a big budget. Additionally, he promised more good things for the family, like 4 minibuses, a plot, and 3 tuk-tuks that would generate daily income for the mother. After staying in Kisumu for a while, Quincy decided to move to Nairobi, as Kisumu was not offering the kind of opportunities he wanted. And this move to Nairobi was the start of Quincy Timberlake's problems. So what happened? The mother said that in the city, he met Helen, and suddenly Quincy changed. He became an ever angry, quarrelsome, and irritable person. Quincy started quarreling with the mother on the phone whenever he called, and he became hostile to the family. The mother revealed that Timberlake started working on how to make his family forget him by taking away all the photos she had of him in more than 10 family albums. They had to move back to a smaller house in the slums because they could no longer afford the rent, as Quincy was no longer paying for the rent. The mother blamed Helen for misleading and brainwashing her son, but Helen denied the claims, saying the only thing that made him allow Quincy back into his life and into his church was their shared childhood experiences and the trust they had built over the years. So what was Quincy Timberlake doing in Helen's place and church, the finger of God? And how did he meet Esther Arunga, a cousin to Helen? Now, before he met Helen and Esther Arunga, Quincy already had a wife and kids. In January 2015, a woman came out claiming that she was married to Quincy Timberlake for 10 years before he allegedly dumped her for Esther Arunga. The woman was called Rose. Now, according to Rose, she met Quincy in February 1999. At that time, she was in her early 20s and was a college student. She describes their first meeting as love at first sight, and that by the end of the year, she had moved into Quincy's house in South B and was already pregnant with their first child. It was a happy marriage. Quincy was a musician and was always traveling to Tanzania and Uganda to perform. Life was good, as Quincy was a good provider. According to Rose, Quincy was kind, funny, and very loving. In 2004, she conceived and delivered their second-born son. Quincy was constantly traveling outside the country for music tours, and all was well until 2008, when Quincy's trips outside the country started getting longer. He would be out of the country for weeks, and when he came back, the wife could tell something was wrong with him. Quincy became short-tempered and didn't want to talk much about his business trips.
He was telling me he's going out of the country for some businesses and all this. So on this particular time, he went on another business trip. And it was supposed to go for a week. And so after that week, he never called. I tried his phone and his phone was off. So I was like, is it something bad that has happened to him? And nothing was coming on. So
Despite that, the wife chose to ignore, as she was only interested in making her husband happy and also her children. As she was making her husband happy, Quincy was busy making another woman happy. In 2010, news of Quincy and Helen being arrested for running an illegal society went viral. The wife visited him in prison and would find other visitors including Esther Arunga. But it never crossed her mind that her husband was dating Esther Arunga. The wife was surprised to learn from news reports that Quincy got married to Esther Arunga.
I am legally married to Quincy Timberlake.
I didn't believe it. It was there. Quincy Timberlake marries Esther Arunga. So me, I joked about it. I said, nowadays so many soaps are coming up. Maybe this is just another soap.
According to Esther Arunga, she first met Quincy Timberlake through social networking years ago when they both studied in Australia. But they were young and nothing really happened. And did they really meet in Australia? Maybe. Remember Quincy's mother saying the son went to the US.
Was
So
he
he-
even in America? Because
No,
that's how
told
much
you
I
he
don't
was
trust
lying.
him.
He wasn't.
Oh,
he wasn't in the
lying.
United States. He was somewhere in Cayole as he was doing all this. So
Anyway, according to Esther, when Quincy came back to Kenya, he happened to visit his friend Helen, and he attended their church, the Finger of God. That is where they met and rekindled their friendship and ended up getting married. A marriage that was met with resistance from family members, as Esther Arunga was preparing for a wedding with a different man called Wilson Malaba, whom she accused of cheating on her and not having his finances in order. According to reports, Finger of God Ministries was begun in 2003. It was led by Joseph Hellon, a jazz saxophonist and music teacher. The saga surrounding this church began in the early 2010s, many people believing that it was a cult or a secret society.
Our church is not against consumption of alcohol as long as somebody does not get drunk.
But according to the members of the church, it was a normal church just like other churches. It's only after Quincy Timberlake joined the church that things changed.
The church used to run as per normal, as I said before. It's only when Quincy showed up that things changed.
Quincy came into the church with a lot of lies and doctrines that were not biblical.
For example, people were eating certain herbs to improve performance in bed. Benny Hinn speaking through the preacher, someone saying that I'm standing here, but Benny Hinn is speaking through me.
And why was Quincy allowed to do such things in the church? Quincy was close to Helen. Remember, he was his childhood friend. Esther Arunga also convinced Helen that Quincy was her friend, which made Helen embrace Quincy even more.
she convinced me that this was an old-time friend, which is the reason why I embraced Quincy even more. Because I thought, this guy went to school with me, primary school, and now you're saying you went to school with him as well. Wow, amazing stuff. I said, what a coincidence. I don't believe in coincidences,
Yeah.
but it appeared like
A beautiful
like
coincidence.
a beautiful
It works.
coincidence, yeah.
In the beginning, Quincy Timberlake, Esther Arunga, and Joseph Hellon seemed to be very close. They even formed a party called the Placenta Party, and Joseph Hellon was to vie for the country's presidency, Arunga was to be the vice president, and Quincy Timberlake the prime minister. Quincy and Hellon also did music together and released several songs such as Opota Pota, Crossroads, and Wangwe. Besides the music, there are also other stories about emails purported to be conversations between televangelist Benny Hinn and Hellon, where Benny Hinn advises Esther to marry Quincy. It was later discovered that the emails were fake. At one point, senior pastors at Benny Hinn Crusade in Kampala confirmed that Quincy was not the official contact in Kenya as claimed, but a bishop called Arthur. A lot of things were said about Quincy and the Finger of God, to the point that the church was investigated by the government. News reports say that investigations into the church began after a former member of the church, Wilson Malaba, who was also the ex to Esther Arunga, reported at Kilimani police station claiming he had received text messages alleging he had killed Helen's child and planned to kill Esther. Helen was later charged at Kibera Law Courts and was released on a cash bail of 20,000 Kenyan shillings. Helen and Quincy eventually fell out after Quincy discovered dark things about him. Quincy was a master manipulator, a pathological liar, and a man obsessed with being the center of attention. Quincy once told Helen that both his mother and sister were dead, only for Helen to later learn that they were both alive. According to Helen, Quincy showed up at his doorstep in 2009, looking for help as he got involved in Satanism while in the US, and that he needed his help for deliverance, and in return, he was to reward Helen. Quincy said he knew producers in the US and musicians such as the late Whitney Houston, and he would help his church grow. He also claimed he would organize a Joseph Helen Eurojazz tour sponsored by Pepsi worth millions. Helen was also promised a Jaguar and a jet. It was easy for Helen to believe Quincy, as Quincy was charismatic and he could play the guitar, the drums, and sing well. But after some time, Helen believed Quincy managed to convince him using the powers of darkness. The same powers of darkness he used to convince Helen are the same powers of darkness that he used to brainwash and mislead Esther Arunga. Esther Arunga was actually planning her wedding with a different man, and all of a sudden, Quincy Timberlake came into the picture and they got married. Which made people really wonder, what made Esther Arunga cancel her wedding and marry this mysterious man? Was Esther brainwashed? Was it witchcraft? Was she in love with this man so bad? Or was it the daddy punishment? You know what kind of daddy punishment? In 2010, Esther Arunga held a press conference to clarify the facts. There, she revealed that she quit her job with KTN, called off a planned wedding to a man called Malaba, and was now living in the church mansion with Joseph Helen and his wife Kuyu plus other followers. Arunga would later reveal why she left Malaba, who was supposed to be the husband, and chose Quincy. The reason the wedding was stopped was because Wilson's beliefs, practices, and conduct were contrary to the Finger of God's church beliefs and teachings. But Wilson had a different story. He said he met Esther in the early 2008. At the time of their meeting, Esther Arunga was already a member of the Finger of God Ministries, and it was Esther who persuaded Wilson Malaba to join the church. Malaba claimed that the wedding with Esther was called off after Esther was told by church officials that an American preacher, Benny Hinn, told her to marry Quincy.
She's not Esther Arunga anymore. She's Esther Timberlake, officially married to Quincy Timberlake. I'm a wife. One day I will be a mother.
Esther Arunga's parents were against her relationship with Quincy, but nothing could stop Esther. Wilson tried, but he failed. The police also tried, but they failed. Esther decided to fight for a marriage. Initially, people believed that Helen was the one who was brainwashing Esther, but that was not the case. According to Helen, he had investigated Quincy when he was living at his Runda home and found out bad things about him. He claimed that Quincy Timberlake liked controversy, and that is one of the reasons why he married Esther, so as to be able to gain popularity. Helen tried to persuade Esther to leave the man, but Esther was stubborn, and there was nothing Helen could do as Arunga was 30 years old, and she had every right to make her own decisions.
I told Esther this is a bad guy. In fact, we had a meeting, my wife, myself, Quincy, and Esther, 2010 December, in my house in Kitisuru, and I confronted Quincy with my evidence, including some of the motherboards he used to remove. After conning people on the internet, he would remove the motherboard so that the CIDs cannot access.
First, his name Quincy Timberlake was not his real name, and people speculated that he combined the name of the legendary Quincy Jones and Justin Timberlake to make the name Quincy Timberlake. In 2010, Quincy said he's Kenyan from a village called Marera in Rongo area of Migori district, located in Nyanza. He also said that his real name is Quincy Zuma Wambiti, but he declined to produce an ID to confirm that. This was not the first time that Quincy was supposedly lying. In 2003, It's believed that he walked into Ogopa DJ offices claiming to be a South African national interested in a collab with K-Rapt. Quincy was using the name Fizzle Dog. For context, K-Rapt was a Kenyan artist who recorded big songs like Bamba featuring Issa and Tukawake. Quincy was supposed to record 5 songs with K-Rapt, but several weeks into the deal, he was acting funny and Ogopa DJs decided not to work with him. Weeks later, K-Rapt died and Quincy disappeared. Besides that, according to internet sources, Quincy Timberlake played with the Lingala musicians in Kenya in 1996. He was a dancer known as Kofi the Dancer, but he later changed the name from Kofi to Desato, launching his own solo career. Quincy was also very fluent in Lingala, which made people not know his real tribe or nationality. Quincy was also a member of Africa's Rhythms Band between 2003 and 2004, and during his time there, he featured as both a keyboard player and singer, and after leaving the band, he joined another band called Patron Musica Band. One strange thing a member of the band noted is that Quincy often kept his identity secret. His first wife would later reveal that Quincy was indeed a musician, but of limited education, and that the farthest he had traveled was to South Africa. His educational background is also quite unclear. Quincy said he had a degree from the University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, where he studied psychology. Immediately after that, he went to the US and joined Washington State University to study endocrinology, but he never provided the exact years. This is the same time he also flew to Australia and joined the University of Newcastle, where he studied law. It was in Australia, if you remember, where he met Esther Arunga. As per this article by The Standard, Quincy was claiming that he was worth millions of dollars. He made money through real estate in Syokimau and along Mombasa Road. He also made money through cash crop farming, speech writing, composing of manifestos for several political parties, and foreign travel arrangements. Also property purchases in Uruguay, Chile, Costa Rica, Panama, Slovenia, and Malaysia. On top of that, he was also a board director at one of Al Fajr group of companies in Dubai, and that he was also exporting used Dubai cars to Tanzania, Botswana, Namibia, and other countries. Quincy also claimed that several politicians whom he never mentioned had approached him to join their political parties, but he turned those requests down. And these things were being done by a single person. All those things. How? Some of the information might be true, but not all. His friend Helen even said Quincy was a conman, and he could do anything or say anything to get what he wanted. He also said he was a cyber criminal. In 2012, Quincy Timberlake and Esther Arunga claimed that they had been constantly attacked by the state and subjected to negative publicity by the media. They decided to leave Kenya for Dubai and finally settled in Australia. While staying in Australia, Quincy Timberlake quickly announced his intention to work with the Australian Labour Party, but before he could pursue these plans, he was involved in the death of his 3-year-old son on June 18, 2014. At first, Timberlake and his wife Esther Arunga told the police that his son Sinclair Timberlake had fallen down the stairs when he was playing with his younger brother. Esther Arunga would later tell investigators that her husband punched their son on the stomach while trying to fight demons and aliens. Quincy Timberlake was telling his wife that he was pumping poison out of the child and that he was being chased by demon soldiers and the parents of his wife wanting to kill him. According to an autopsy, the cause of death was as a result of severe blunt force. In September 2023, Timberlake pleaded guilty in the tragic death of his son and was sentenced to 11 years in Australia. Timberlake had already spent nearly a decade behind bars since his arrest 3 months after the son's death. Arunga was handed a 10-month prison term and immediately freed on parole as there was no evidence that Arunga hurt her son. This is one of those stories that you'd expect to see in movies or read in books. It's unbelievable. Let me know how you feel about this story, and if you enjoy this type of content, kindly subscribe and like this video. I repeat, subscribe and like this video. Follow me on Instagram at ongori.reports, and let's meet on the next video.